Hi, welcome everybody. Hi. I'm so happy you're here. If you are joining me on Zoom and you've never used Zoom as a platform before, and you're on your computer, feel free to move the box as we are talking today if it's blocking your view. I did a webinar last week and we had some issues with that, so I figured I would give you a little heads up. If you're over on Facebook with me, hi, I will be getting to your comments and things probably after, because if I try to monitor comments while I'm talking, I get very distracted and I won't give you the right amount of attention that you need and deserve. So hi and welcome. If you are new here to my space, my little corner of the interwebs, my name is Kelly. You might have found me online as the Wholesome Nomad. And I am super excited for this conversation today because it's actually been something that's been on my heart to share more about the last couple of years. And for some reason, this past Mother's Day, just a couple of days ago, it really struck me that this is something that I want to be having more conversations about because it's kind of hard, right? And I actually did this webinar last week and then sort of revamped it based on how things went in our little private webinar there. So I'm really excited to share this with you. And I've also got a super fun self-care workshop coming up at the end of this month. If you are listening to this and realizing that you need a little bit more direction, a little more help, I got you covered and we can work on it together. Okay, so redefining self-care. Let's jump right in. Yes, hi, I'm Kelly. I already introduced myself. I am an educator, so I have a background in teaching, which is why if you follow any of my content online, a lot of it is very lesson planning. So there's a little bit of a fun factoid from me. I was in the elementary classroom for 9 years, my last 5 of which were in kindergarten. I miss it, but we now live full-time on the road, and so that makes it a little difficult for me to teach physically in a classroom. So we are full-time RVers. We've been traveling and living nomadically for about 3 years now, and I have been teaching about holistic healthcare and using essential oils and building a business with doTERRA for about 5 years now. So it's become a really beautiful part of my life and something I'm super passionate about. I am a certified essential oil specialist. I'm a holistic lifestyle coach, and I am here to tell you all, hi, my name is Kelly, and I am a recovering self-care shamer. So if you are watching this with me and that resonates, if you know, you know. I grew up in, a single family household where I watched my mother do all of the things all of the time. And one of the things that she very rarely did was take time for herself. And, I don't harbor any resentment towards her. She did what she had to do. We all do better until we know better. But I grew up not really knowing what that meant. And then when she passed away about 6 years ago, it sent me into a total tailspin because I realized that I had attached so much of how I care for myself to how she cared for me when I was a little girl. So then losing her in my mid-20s was like totally, just a giant upheaval. And I realized that I had to sort of step up and figure out how I could take care of myself, mother myself, and really show up for me in the best way possible. And while I talk a lot about my journey with gastroparesis and as a stomach condition that I have that brought me to doTERRA, really what it all boils down to is I started taking ownership of my own healthcare and taking control over what I could do to take care of myself on a day-to-day basis. And that kind of just has stacked up along the way over the past several years of my healing journey to lead me where I am today. I'm living asymptomatically with a chronic health condition, and I help other people do the same. So I'm here to tell you that you are not alone if you are a fellow self-care shamer. I am right there with you, sister, and we will get through it together, I promise. So I wanted to kick us off with this quote because I think it's really powerful, and it's actually something that I've now written on a sticky note and it's in front of me when I do my work day to day, because I often need to be reminded to stop what I'm doing and remember to take care of myself. Self-care is how you take your power back. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't really know why I need to do self-care, but I felt called to join in this conversation, or maybe you've just been following me for a while and we have a lot of fun here. This is my little nudge to you. In order for us to fully step into our best expression of who we are and to show up fully in ourselves and our authentic selves, we have to take care of what that looks like. And I know for a lot of you that might feel and seem overwhelming. It certainly did for me many years ago when I sort of started all of this. So I'm going to walk you through some steps and give you some simple action items if that sounds totally foreign. But maybe you're already on the self-care train and you know that it feels good, but you didn't really know why. I love this quote because it kind of sums it up, right? It's how we take our power back. It's how we step into the full expression of who we are. And for a lot of us, I speak and deal with mostly women. here in this platform, this is also how we can harness that divine feminine energy, right? And that nurturing and that concept of like mothering ourselves, whether or not you have a mom who's physically or aside with you or is involved in your life in any way, we can still absolutely mother ourselves on a daily basis. And it's a really incredible gift that we can give. Okay, so I'm going to do the obnoxious teacher thing that everybody hates and give you the dictionary definition of self-care. Normally, I don't like doing this, but I think it's really interesting because one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this topic is it deeply triggers me when I see people talk about self-care in this like super commercialized sort of fruity way. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You know, it's the ad where this woman is looking like totally gorgeous, like she just rolled out of bed and she's got a full face of makeup on and she's super serene, right? Or it's for some sort of new beauty care product or a workout routine or whatever it is. And they slap the label of this is for self-care on it. And it seems like this gorgeous sort of glimmery thing. In my experience, true self-care looks nothing like that on most days. And so I'm going to break it down for you here in a bit. But when we look at the dictionary definition, self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve your own health. Sometimes, of course, that looks like, you know, a new workout routine or a green smoothie. And sometimes it might look a little bit different, like having hard conversations with people and setting healthy boundaries. The second definition I actually like better. It's the practice of taking an active role in protecting our own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. Like, I don't know, maybe during a global pandemic. Anybody else having a little period of stress right now? I know I certainly am. And there's lots of us, you know, it's very odd. We're having this sort of shared global experience, and yet we're all experiencing it very, very differently. And I think that in and of itself can feel stressful, right? So if there was ever a time to sort of lean in and try to test the waters a little bit with what your self-care practice and routine might look like, I think now is the time. This is your giant call to action. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail over kind of how I like to define self-care here in just a second too. So why is this important? One, to take our power back, and two, I have a fun little factoid for you. Gallup did a survey last year of Americans, and they found that 79% of Americans feel stressed either often or mostly throughout the day, every single day. That's a lot. That's almost 80% of our, you know, adult population who feel stressed more than they don't, which is a really, that number was like shocking to me and also not at the same time. You know what I mean? Like it was such a high number, but then I also thought, well, that makes a lot of sense because we live in kind of this culture where we have this badge of honor that we get for being busy all the time, and we're constantly climbing different ladders, and we're trying to compare ourselves with other people on social media or make sure our family is safe and secure, right? There's all these different pressures and different directions that we're pulled, so it makes sense. But as we know, and hopefully this isn't brand new information for you, stress has really, really negative impacts on the body, not the least of which is it compromises your immune function. So right now, you know, a lot of us have been quarantined, we've been sort of self-isolated, we've been kind of hanging out in our own little bubble. And while that has absolutely done great things to help, you know, flatten the curve and keep a lot of other people healthy, sort of the double edge to that is we haven't been exposed to as many environmental threats as we normally have. So our immune system is going to be a little bit lower anyway. Compound the fact that we're probably eating not so well. I don't know about you, but I've definitely been eating a little bit more sugar, had a few more glasses of wine than I typically do, right? My food game's been off a little bit than normal. Maybe a lot of us aren't working out or exercising as much as we can. We're certainly not connecting, which is a very big part of our health and well-being, right? And we're feeling more stressed. So all of that to say, our immune systems are going to be a lot more compromised than I think we're even aware once things kind of start to reopen. I don't know how it is in your area, but I'm here in Michigan right now, and it's still pretty much on lockdown. But I can tell already that as things across the country start to sort of open up, I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of us are going to be very aware of how strong our immune systems are not. And so we need to be doing things right now to help prepare ourselves. And of course, there's all sorts of things you can be doing for immune health, and that's a separate class. But for this one, we're going to talk about self-care in and of itself and how that alone can also help to improve immune function, especially when it comes to stress and that sort of emotional component there. Okay, so here is kind of how I define what good, if you will, air quotes, self-care is. In my opinion, good self-care is individual, meaning my self-care practice is going to look vastly different than someone else's good self-care practice, right? And that's okay. And that's actually a really beautiful thing because we're all at different points in our life. We're all riding a different roller coaster. And so we're going to need to lean into different practices based on what that is, right? And I'll remind you too that self-care practice is just that. It is a practice. It's like a yoga practice, right? Or piano practice. You have to do it consistently all the time. And we're constantly learning new things. We're constantly getting new skills. And we're also constantly having to remind ourselves to like put the practice back into place, right? So give yourself a ton of grace as we have this conversation. What I don't want you to come out of this time together with is this sense of like, shame and heaviness that you haven't been doing all the things. It's totally okay. We're here for you, and this is just part of the journey. So self-care is individual. I also think good self-care is really flexible. We're going to have different points in our life where we need to be focusing on different areas. For example, right now, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. What does that mean? My self-care routine of going to yoga at a physical yoga studio 4 times a week doesn't look the same, right? So I need to be flexible in those practices that I choose to come up with for myself. It also needs to be intentional. Hear me out on this, because the last time I taught this, I had a few people get triggered. They're like, well, no, if you're just living a healthy lifestyle, it sort of just kind of happens organically. And my response is yes, right? So yes, of course, when we're living a healthy lifestyle, a lot of these things that we do that make us feel good sort of just start to happen naturally. And also, in my opinion, good self-care means you're really aware of what areas you need to work on. And so you're also intentionally adding new things, taking away new habits, shifting things, right, in order to get you to where you need to go for that next step, that right next step for you. In my opinion, good self-care is also refueling. So when we do good self-care practices, even though they might be hard, right? They might be an emotionally hard conversation that you have with someone, or needing to, for example, this one's mine, needing to shut your phone off at 8 o'clock at night because you have to get in bed by 9 o'clock, right? It should still feel refueling at the end of the day. So even if it's hard, even if it feels sticky, even if it's something that is challenging for you to move through, once it's all said and done, it should be something that fuels you, that fills your cup, that allows you to feel more in alignment with who you are. And also, mostly, there's my caveat there, self-care, good self-care should be fun. Of course, if you're having to have a tough conversation with a family member, which is what I had to do on Sunday, it wasn't very fun, right, in the midst of it. But at the end of it, I felt refueled. I felt like I spoke my authentic truth, and I feel better now with that family member and that connection, even though in the midst of it, it wasn't super fun. But most of the time, it should be, and I'll give you some different ideas of what that looks like for me too here in a sec. So the converse side of that, what good self-care is not, in my opinion, is generalized, right? It's not everybody go get a massage once a week. Now, if you can, awesome, rock it, right? We all love a good massage, but it's not necessarily going to be that blanket, magic Band-Aid for everybody. Also, good self-care is not rigid. So in other words, I think a lot of us, myself, type A included, we kind of get this plan. We're like, okay, well, every single day I'm going to do A through M, and that is going to be my self-care routine. Well, the reality is things change, and our life demands different things of us at different times, and so we have to be flexible. Not accidental. We sort of already talked about that, and it should not be completely draining. So if you are, I talked to someone actually last week. I was doing a private health coaching conversation, and she has been sort of forcing herself to do these CrossFit style workouts for the last couple of weeks, and she's really not feeling it. She likes moving her body, but it's been really hard. She feels really sluggish. She's not sleeping well. She doesn't feel motivated to go. So my nudge to her was maybe start exploring a different way for you to move your body, a different expression of that doesn't feel so draining on you right now, until you feel like going back into that would be refueling. So that's just kind of an illustration of what that means. And then good self-care really should not be stressful. It might be stressful for a moment, when I had that tough conversation with that family member on Sunday that I honestly really didn't want to have. Stressful in the moment, yes, but long-term, no, right? And actually not even after the 10 minutes after I had the conversation, it wasn't even all that stressful. It's just sometimes hard to get out of your comfort zone and to, open up to some people who might not take your words very well, right? We've all been there. Okay, so where to start? This is about the time of the conversation that I have with people where they're like, okay, I get you. I need to do some self-care. I'm totally lost. I have no idea where to begin. And it's really overwhelming. So if you are a doTERRA customer of mine, you've probably already seen this wellness pyramid or something like it. This is what we kind of use to sort of check in with ourselves every 90 days and see how we're doing and kind of revamp our different essential oil and supplement practices. But I encourage you to do this right now with me, for your self-care practice, okay? So that could include essential oils, and I have a little blurb about that. We'll talk later. But for right now, take a look at these areas, right? We have eating right, exercising, resting and managing stress, reducing toxic load, informed self-care, which is a lot of what we're talking about today, and proactive medical care. Kind of rate yourself and where you fall on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like really terrible, I'm eating nothing but potato chips all day long, and 10 being it's super awesome, I'm moving my body every single day, I feel really strong and really great, right? Rate yourself in a scale of 1 to 10, and then choose 2, no more than 3 areas that you want to focus on. This is going to be hard for some of you. It's hard for me because I might rate myself on any given day and feel like I'm at about a 4 or 5 everywhere. So I want to pick all the areas. What you're doing though is not setting yourself up for success, and this is really hard for anyone who's type A or type A minus. But we really want to start sort of streamlining so that you can prioritize. And what's cool is you'll notice, say if you pick eating right and resting and managing stress to focus on for self-care, you'll start to notice that the other things sort of fall into place, like a ripple effect. So once I start eating better and sort of moving that needle a little bit, now all of a sudden I have more energy to exercise. And because I'm exercising throughout the day, I'm falling asleep faster and I'm staying asleep longer. I'm also reducing that toxic load, right? Because I'm detoxing throughout the day, and I'm maybe making more green smoothies because I'm eating right, right? So it kind of all sort of starts to connect. So pick 2, no more than 3 areas you'd like to improve. And then within those little areas, you're going to pick no more than 2 practices to start in each area. So what I mean by that is, say you picked eating right as one of your areas for self-care. Your 2 practices might be, I want to increase my water intake to 64 ounces a day, and I'm going to try 1 new vegetable a month. So no more than 2 new practices. If you add too many things on your plate, you're going to start to feel like this is work and like it's really, you know, like a second job that you have to add onto your plate. And I know a lot of us are really busy people and we don't want to do that, okay? So pick no more than 2 practices in each area to start. I'm happy to give you lots of different ideas. Honestly though, a simple Google or Pinterest search will help you too. If you just search like self-care practice for, you know, stress management, it'll come up with a whole list of things. It'll say things like yoga, mindful breathing, yoga nidra, meditation apps, right? So that's going to kind of be where you need to take ownership once you identify your areas, and then you can find some practices that work for you. But if you do need help, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to share, and I have a couple that I'll share with you here in a second too. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense. And of course, here at the Wholesome Nomad and with doTERRA, we take a holistic approach to everything we do, because you are a human being, not a human doing. We need to look at the whole body all together. So here's kind of what that looks like for me in my self-care practice, and hopefully this will help inspire you as you work to create your own. So first and foremost, I love the idea of leveraging our time that we do have, and I like to call these little power pockets. So I got this actually from a dear friend of mine, and she's a very busy working professional mom who's also building a business on her own. And so she only has a couple of power pockets a day where she can work on self-care and she can work on things for her business. And so, you know, what you'll do is if you look at your schedule, and I know that I have an hour and a half for lunch, right? It takes me 45 minutes to eat, which gives me another 45 minutes of like a power pocket time. What can I do within that power pocket to maximize my time investment? And that might look like a 20-minute walk and then 25 minutes to work on, you know, whatever else. But a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, I just don't have time for self-care. And I've been there. I was right there with you. If that's it, I want you to start looking at your day. Even just take an example of a day like today or yesterday and write down hour by hour exactly what you did from the time you woke up till the time you went to bed. Check in and see exactly what got done throughout the day. And then notice where you might have had an opportunity to fill a power pocket with some self-care. And again, we don't want to make this stressful. It doesn't have to be huge, you know, a huge time investment for you, but find a time that it might work best for you. For me, usually it's that in between, you know, I have a job I work in the morning, I'm done at 9 a.m. And then I don't start my like other job until usually 11 or noon. So I have a couple hours in there that I can kind of play with. And instead of scrolling social media or, you know, maybe even washing the dishes, that was me this morning. I don't think you can see behind me, but they have not been done because my power pocket was I can either do 20 minutes of yoga and light stretching or do my dishes. And today I chose yoga. Maybe I'll choose dishes tomorrow, right? But I was still able to kind of use that power pocket as a flex time. The other thing I love on here is to create a joy list. And again, this might be also really, really hard for you if you're anything like me. A lot of times I think we grow up and we forget what it's like to play and to have fun. So I love starting this when you start building a self-care practice, make yourself a list of things that bring you joy. And it could be anything that's really, really simple all the way up to a little bit more complicated. So for example, my joy list has like Parks and Rec on it. I'm a big Parks and Rec fan. I love it. It's so much fun. I love taking pictures with my big DSLR camera. I only do it for me. I don't ever post them. I don't share them with anybody. I don't do it as a business. It's just for me. It's fun. I like to play cards with my husband. I like to go on long walks with my dog, right? Create a joy list and have a physical list written out. I recommend you handwrite it rather than make it digital, and put it somewhere. So put it on your fridge. Mine's on my bulletin board. That way, when you have a power pocket and you're like, okay, I need to do 20 minutes of self-care today, and maybe none of your other practices are working, or you have an extra 20 minutes, you can go to that joy list and select something that's going to give you a little bit of a boost. Or if you're feeling kind of funky that day and you need an idea of what to do to kind of bring you out of it, sometimes it's nice to physically see a list that you've created in your handwriting of things that bring you joy, because I've been there when it just feels like nothing is going your way and it feels really heavy. So it's nice to have that to go back to. Then from the flip of that, you can also create a no list. So your no list is going to be things that you are committing not to doing. So I am committing not to using my phone after 8 o'clock at night, right? I absolutely do not answer phone calls from a certain family member after a certain time of day, because that's a really triggering time. There's a lot that's going on there, and I don't want to interact with that person after that certain time, right? I know that if my choices are to get an email out to my current customer base or go to the grocery store, and my husband's going to offer to go, that needs to be on my no list, right? I'm not going to do the grocery shopping because he's home right now and he gets to help me do that sort of thing. So find some boundaries, if you will, some different no's that you're going to follow. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. We're not trying to remove anything or totally wreck your lifestyle right now. But having that is a really good tangible reminder, especially if you're like me and setting boundaries can be really hard. I'm also a recovering people pleaser, so I need to have that actually physically in front of me when I am entering into situations where I could very easily fall back into that trap where I'm compromising my own self-care for someone else to fill someone else's needs, right? A gratitude practice is also hugely important. I picked up the 5-minute journal a couple years ago. It's awesome. You can grab it on Amazon, the 5-minute journal. It truly just takes me 5 minutes a day. It lives by my bed. So what I do is in the morning, I write the date, and then it has 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things that would make today really awesome, and then a daily affirmation. Super easy. And then you do it again before bed. You just write 3 amazing things that happened today, and how could you have made today even better? So it's just a really grounding practice to get you in the habit of gratitude if that's not already part of your day-to-day. And I find that having a book where I can physically write it down is nice. I can also go back and kind of reference things, throughout time, which is really awesome too. Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys are so cute. I'm just now seeing all the chats. Yeah, starting all the gratitude journaling for sure. Actually, Laura, I think I got the 5-minute journal idea from you. I'm pretty sure, maybe, which is really funny how this all comes around. Okay, and then rediscovering play. So we mentioned earlier in our joy list, right? A lot of times I'm amazed at how many women I work with, and I'm like, okay, what do you do for fun? What's playtime for you? And they're like, they have no idea. And I totally get it because, as a kindergarten teacher, it was so funny. I used to let my kids out for recess. And I don't know if you've ever watched a group of kids before, but they will literally run to nowhere just for the sake of running, right? Because they know how to play. They know how to just kind of harness that energy. And I feel like that kind of gets beaten out of us a little bit as we age. So if that scares you, if rediscovering play is like, whew, kind of putting a rock in the pit of your stomach, don't worry, it's okay. This is something that you can also practice on learning how to do. Just start writing some ideas or start exploring. Maybe take 5 minutes and sit there and journal out a whole bunch of stuff that you always wanted to do when you were little or when you were younger, or what you thought you might do when you're older, and write it out and see what that might look like for you. I can give you an example. I had a client last month, and she had always wanted to learn how to roller skate, but she never got roller skates as a kid. And now she's in her 40s and was like, it's too late to roller skate. I don't want to try it out. What if I hate it? What if I fall? What if I break a hip? And so we got her to try it, and guess what? She freaking loves it. And now she roller skates every single day, which gets her movement going. And it also is a time for her to just play. So when I say play, this could be playing with your kids if you have them at home, but I would encourage you to find something that's truly just for you. Something that your husband isn't involved in, your partner, your kiddos, your work, community, something that is truly just for you that you do for fun. Maybe it's playing with your oils and making blends. Maybe it's painting or crafting. My stepmom just retired from a very long career, and she has taken up oil painting and writing a novel. And I'm like, that is amazing. Go you. Because not a lot of us have the bravery and the courage to step into brand new skills like that as we age. So find something that you can do to play a little bit more. Movement is huge for me as a self-care practice, and it's also for me the first thing to go. So that is something that I have to do like first and foremost, otherwise I won't do it, and I just know myself well enough. So again, movement can kind of look very different. If you're a CrossFitter and you love that kind of high intensity cardio, you go. If you're more of a nice long walk, podcast in my ears, listening to the birds chirping kind of gal, that's good for you too. Think about what your body needs. And I actually will kind of do that in the morning is I'll tap in and I'll say, okay, where are we at? Are we feeling stiff and achy? Do we need some yoga? Are we feeling kind of like clogged and heavy? Maybe we need some cardio stuff. Maybe we need a blend of both, right? So if you have had a movement practice that's been the same for you every single day for years, now might be your call to action to shake it up a little bit and maybe play with something that is uncomfortable slightly. And I know right now we're kind of all at home, so we're slightly limited in terms of where you can go, but I've seen so many people step up and start doing yoga things online and even cycling classes, things like that. So I would encourage you to find a movement practice that works, and know that it doesn't have to be intense. If all your body wants that day or really needs, and you have a power pocket of 10 minutes to just sit and breathe and move your body in any way that feels good, then do that. Or put on your favorite song and dance for 2.5 minutes. That can be some really intense cardio if you get going. So find some movement. Nourishing the body, again, huge concept, right? So this is the whole concept of like nutrition and eating right. I don't really subscribe to any particular diet. You do you. Here's my best piece of advice. Eat whole foods, mostly plants. Limit your sugar, dairy, and alcohol intake, right? Keep it simple. I love the concept of like trying one new vegetable or one new fruit a day, or implementing something you haven't eaten in a while. I just bought mangoes the other day. I haven't had mangoes in years. Oh my gosh, they're amazing, fresh mangoes. So find something new to add into your diet. Eating the rainbow is going to be really important, especially like I was talking about earlier, as we sort of re-enter into life. We're going to want to be packing on those awesome nutrients in our fruits and vegetables as much as we can. Meditation and mindfulness. This is something I still struggle with. So I had a meditation practice that was really, really strong for a while. And then I did a challenge group for 21 days that was awesome. And then I fell off the map completely. So now lately, the last like 6 weeks, I've only been meditating when I'm feeling really stressed or when I can't sleep, which is great. And also there's room for improvement there, right? My favorite apps are Insight Timer and Headspace. Insight Timer I actually really prefer because you can select your time. So say I have a power pocket of 10 minutes and I want to do some meditation today. I can literally go into the app, click 10 minutes, guided meditation for anxiousness, and it'll play in my ears, and it's amazing. So you can totally customize it that way. Or maybe you just set a timer and listen to the birds chirp or some music for 5 minutes, whatever works for you. I need somebody to talk to me and tell me what to do, to tell me to breathe and what to think about, basically, because that's kind of still where I'm at. But that's a really good, important part of a good self-care routine. And then, of course, outside counseling and therapies. I don't think this gets talked about nearly enough, and so I will totally be the leading the charge here and piloting this. Should you uncover some stuff as you're journaling or doing your gratitude or you're walking and you're like, this is really heavy for me, I need help in this area, please go get some help. There is so many options for online therapy nowadays, especially right now, which is really great. I saw a grief counselor after my mom died for about a year, and then I went and saw a different therapist for about 1.5 years after that. And now we kind of just check in on a quarterly basis, but it was incredibly life-changing for me. And I think there's still, as much as we'd like to believe there isn't, there's still kind of a big, heavy stigma around mental health and getting outside therapy and counseling, and there absolutely doesn't need to be. So if you have questions about that or questions about grief counseling or any of that, please let me know, and I can sort of kind of guide you in the right direction. Other things you could look into are all the fun things that we can do once life kind of starts reopening again, right? Like chiropractic care and acupuncture and hypnosis, which is super fun. That might be something you can play with as well, if you haven't done that yet. Okay, I feel like I could go on and on about this, but then I will take up your entire afternoon, so we won't do that today. Okay, so essential oils, of course. I can't ever host a class without talking about essential oils because they're such a critical part of everything that I do. The reason why using essential oils, especially as we talk about self-care, is so impactful is because they have a direct access point to the limbic system in your brain. The limbic system is like right here in the front of your brain, and it's your emotional control center, which is why sometimes when you smell like freshly cut grass, you might be slingshot back to a memory of like high school football games, or, you know, when your dad used to mow the lawn with you on his back when you were really little, because our sense of smell is directly linked to that limbic system, that emotional control center. So they're super powerful. Essential oils are also carbon-based, which means they're just easily assimilated into the body. So unlike something that's going to be synthetically derived, where the body's kind of confused and has to figure out what to do with all of the moving parts, your body knows what to do with plants. It knows what to do with celery when you eat it, what to do with an apple, right? So it absolutely knows intuitively what to do when you use your different essential oils. If you're brand new to oils, please make sure that you're only using those that are certified pure therapeutic grade. There's a bunch of reasons for this. Mostly, we just don't know what's out there. There's no oversight. There's no regulation on essential oils. So you want to make sure that what you're using can be taken internally, used topically, and also used aromatically. I'll share 4 of my favorites here on this next slide. If you are already using essential oils and you're kind of stuck, you're confused, you're like, I don't really know which way to go, or you don't feel like you know enough about your oils yet, look to plants as they are in nature. So I'm always talking about this with women's health. If you are feeling like you have some issues with your cycle, or you're feeling a little hormonal, or your libido is off, we're going to look at flowers, because flowers look like vaginas in nature, right? If you are wanting more grounding, more centering, some of that like stronger energy, you're going to want to look at trees, look at frankincense and cedarwood, cypress. If you want to feel happy, look at the brightly colored fruits. We're going to look at lemons and oranges and limes, right? Those are happy. They show up in nature and they're like, you just can't help but smile. They look like the sun. So think about plants as they are in nature if you're confused or you're just starting out and you don't really know where to go with your essential oil use. And also I encourage you to use your essential oils to enhance your existing self-care rituals. So if you already have a gratitude practice, it would be super simple for you to do a drop of frankincense in the palm of your hand, breathe it in right before you write down what's in your gratitude journal, right? Or if you are going to go for a light walk or a gentle jog, you could add a drop of peppermint to the chest or breathe to help open up those airways. So this is kind of goes back to the concept of habit stacking, which I teach a lot. Take a habit that you already have anchored in and add new things on top of it. So if you already have a really solid self-care routine of meditating every single morning for 10 minutes, but you want to add use of essential oils, just use them at the same time as you're meditating, right? Rather than trying to make it a whole separate thing that you're going to probably forget about, and your oils are going to collect dust, and that's no good for anybody. We don't want that to happen. So use them to enhance whatever routines you already have going on. Okay, so here are a few of my favorites. This slide was really, really difficult for me to do. And if you're into essential oils, you'll understand why. But I wanted to pick no more than 4 things to talk about in terms of self-care. And these, I think, kind of encompass a lot of the things. So the first one on there is Adaptive. This is a newer blend for us. It is our calming blend. And there's a ton of science, a lot of clinical trials that were done on this particular essential oil blend for feelings of anxiousness in particular. And stress and anxiousness is kind of the thing that seems to trigger us to want to dive more into self-care. So I have been using Adaptive like a mad woman. I've been rolling it on my feet every single morning. It's in the diffuser almost all day long. We've gone through a bottle in the last like 4 weeks because we're both feeling really stressed up in here. I've been massaging my dogs with Adaptive because we're in somewhere that's really rural, and there is a property back here where they've been doing shooting practice a lot. So there's gunshots going off and it's freaking my lab out, right? So Adaptive for all things calming. This is going to be a really important tool in your kit, especially if you have kiddos or pets, or you just are a stressed out human being like the rest of us. Next up there, I have the Lifelong Vitality. These are our doTERRA supplements. And honestly, I was not a supplement person before coming to doTERRA. It took me about 2 years to get on board with them. And I gave it 6 months and I thought, I don't feel a difference. I'm going to go off of them. I was off of them for 2 weeks, and then I told myself never again would that ever happen. Not only is it really just important for us to be supplementing all the time anyway to thrive as human beings, but I noticed such a huge shift in my mental health when I stopped taking my Lifelong Vitality vitamins. So if you're not currently on them, or you're not on a supplement system and you want to try them, let me know and reach out. I'd be happy to help. But this is going to be a really good place for you to start. It's an amazing foundation. I heard a fellow doTERRA leader talk about the Lifelong Vitality once as like your bra for your essential oils. So you need it to support everything else. You're going to want to put your bra on so that you can support all the other practices and all the other essential oils and things that you're doing and using. And the Lifelong Vitality will help sort of amplify and support you in all of that. Copaiba, if you go to YouTube, I have a whole class on Copaiba as it relates to CBD. If that is of interest to you, I've been taking Copaiba, a drop under the tongue, every day for a couple of years now. It's incredibly helpful for just mental health in general. It also has a lot of other side benefits like immune health and sleep support. You can use it to rub into sore and achy muscles. So lots of different uses for self-care in general, whether that's like movement or just mindfulness and meditation. It's a really amazing oil, and it's a pretty low price point for all of the amazing things that it does. So that's a good one too to add into your arsenal. And then lemon. Even though frankincense is hands down my favorite oil, there wasn't room on here for him because I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys an oil that was also going to be super, super multi-use. So if I could choose one oil to give to every person in the world, it would probably be lemon, simply because you can do so many things with it. So if reducing toxic load was one of those areas on that pyramid that you chose, grab some lemon because you can make all your own cleaning products with it. If eating right and, you know, kind of amping up that nutrition was on your list, grab some lemon because you're going to make a fruit wash with your lemon essential oil. You're going to put it in your water to detoxify yourself throughout the day. Maybe, what was another one? Maybe exercising was on there, right? You need a little bit more of a pep. You can do a drop of lemon in the palm of your hand and breathe it in. It's going to help you kind of wake up and feel excited. Lemons are really happy. Remember those bright, happy colors? We're going to look to them when we need a little bit of an uplift. So super versatile essential oils here if you needed a place to start. If you're already into essential oils and you're like, okay, well, give me something new. Here's just a few of my favorite things as we talk about self-care. Okay, so I want to close with this, and I say this all the time: show up for you so you can show up for them. And this is kind of like that cliche saying of putting your oxygen mask on first, but it's so true, right? It's really hard for us to show up in service of others, whether that's your kids, your partners, your customers, if you can't first and foremost show up for you. You need to lead from the front. And the best way to do that is through self-care. So I kind of look at self-care as the key, if you will, to unlock all of these healing pathways in all these other different areas. So this is just kind of if you needed one more reason to make self-care a priority, it's showing up for you so you can be showing up for them. Okay, if we're not already friends, here's all my information. I'm going to pull up the chat box again and make sure that I answered everybody's questions. Yes, gratitude journaling. Yes, lifelong vitality vitamins are a total game changer. Awesome. I'm so excited you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to go ahead and post on social media this afternoon. I meant to put the slide in here and I thought I did, but apparently not. So anyway, that's okay. I have a super fun self-care workshop coming up on the 23rd. It's a 2-hour intensive with me. It's going to be a live group coaching session. There's an ebook and a workbook that comes with it, and I will help walk you through how to make a plan for self-care, especially as we start to sort of come up for air after COVID and quarantine. So I'll be posting that on social media, and if you registered and you're joining me on Zoom, you'll get an email with that as well. Also, if you're on my email list, you'll get that too. So not to worry, I will keep you well informed. You're so welcome. Thanks for hanging out with me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then if you're hanging out with me still and you have any questions and want to chat, we can totally do that.